Now that we've got our skin cleaned up for blemishes and scrubbed with the facial scrub, we're ready to apply foundation makeup. Now the technique involved in doing this is going to be via the filter menu. The filters we're going to be using are the high pass filter and the Gaussian blur filter. What we do need to do first of all is to get a copy of the image as it is right now so that we can use that to build our foundation makeup. Now what we need to do is to open up a new layer, and from this empty new layer we're going to take a copy of all of these existing layers and merge them into a single image. To do this we go to Select All, Edit, Copy Merged. That means copy everything. And with our new empty layer active, we then use Edit Paste. Okay, so now we have a single combined version of all these layers. Now this layer is going to get destroyed in the process of this, so I'll just rename this so we have a clear idea of what it's going to be used for, and I'll call this Foundation Makeup. We go to the filter menu. And the first thing we need to do is find the correct setting that we're going to use for the high pass filter. Now to do this we go to the blur menu, strangely enough, and open up Gaussian blur. What we want to do here is have a look at how much blur is needed to smooth out the skin. Now the trick behind all of this is to only use as much blur as is barely necessary to clean up and smooth the skin. Now I'd find for this image a setting of around about 9 should be pretty good. That gives a very smooth blank surface. Don't worry if it looks artificial, it will in fact look very nice when it's completed. But here's the trick, we don't actually say OK, we just see that this looks alright at level 9 and we cancel. Remember this figure, 9. Go to filter once again and this time go to Other, High Pass. Now with the high pass tool we are going to place in the exact same setting that we decided on with Gaussian blur, which is 9. Say OK. Now that that's set, we're now going to blur this foundation makeup layer using Gaussian blur. So that's filter blur, Gaussian blur. But we don't want to blur it by the same figure. We want to use exactly 1/3 the intensity that we used to create the high pass. So that means 1/3 of 9 is 3. If you find yourself using another figure that doesn't divide by 3, don't get into a twist about it, just use something that's relatively close. It'll be quite acceptable. Say OK. Alright, now it looks terrible so far, but this is because we've still got 2 little things to do. One is we need to invert the image. We're going to reverse this by going to Image, Adjustments, Invert. You can use the shortcut there, of course, of Control-I or Command-I. And then we change the blending mode. This is the big key. Now that it's ready to go, we change the blending mode from Normal to Overlay. Look at that, isn't that nice? That's really very, very smooth looking skin. If you want to reduce the effects somewhat, you can try the soft light mode instead of overlay, and that too will give you a very good result, a little bit more subtle. But either one of those particular blending modes is quite alright. Now that we've got our foundation makeup in place, I'll just put this back to overlay because I like that extreme version, which I'll fool around with later. We now need to clean up around here a lot. We need to get back all of the detail and edging that we have lost because nothing's very sharp now as a result of running this filter. So we're going to use a layer mask. So add a layer mask. Make sure that your palette is filled with black ink. So I'll just set everything back to black at the front and then fill with black. Just do a fill. I'll just do it from the menu by using Edit Fill, and I'll fill with the black setting. Okay, and that now takes away all of the smooth foundation makeup, and I'm going to now manually paint in the areas that I would like to have the makeup on. So I switch colours. So I've got white. We take a brush. I'll increase the size of my brush so you can see this quite quickly, and I start to paint in, and as you can see, here comes the foundation makeup. Now I'm trying to stick purely to the areas of skin to be affected by this. And I'll just move over there. I'm doing this quite quickly and very roughly. This is the advantage of using a layer mask, because if I mess it up, all I need to do is to switch colours to white and I can reverse the effect. So just about done. Of course, it will help if you take your time doing this. Don't be afraid to zoom in, and don't be afraid to change brush sizes a few times to get this exactly right. The more important the job, the more important it is that you take some time in doing this. And I think that's looking pretty good now. Now I'll just check on my mask on the layer by zooming out a little bit. And I'll just show you my layer mask. That's what it looks like so far, and this is helpful actually because you can use this to zoom out and then clean up the mask a little bit. In case you're wondering, I'm using a combination of a mouse and a tablet with a pen, which you'll find that if you're serious about doing this sort of stuff, you can't live without a pen. It's going to get very, very hard if you don't have a pen to be able to place in these effects. It's much, much easier when you're using a pen tool. Okay, that looks pretty good. I'll just click back on the mask and there we go. So that's looking quite nice. I'll just zoom out one more level. So that is our overlay foundation makeup. So here's what it looks like without the makeup, and that's with the makeup. Now again, with this makeup being applied, you can now start making some decisions about how much of this effect you want to have. You can control it with the opacity by increasing and decreasing, or you could indulge in the mask choking that we were playing with before in the facial scrub layer. And it's exactly the same technique, just use image adjustments levels, and you can use the mid-tone and dark and light pixel adjusters to fine-tune that mask. And I think that's a very nice looking bit of foundation makeup, and we're ready to move on.